The Shooting Range. In this episode, Pages of History, surviving north of the Arctic Circle. Round study, 105mm discarding Sabot rounds. And Metal Beasts, the most versatile Focke-Wulf. The Focke-Wulf fighters have long been favored by many War Thunder pilots. Today, we'd like to take a closer look at one of the most versatile members of the great family, the Focke-Wulf 190 F-8 strike aircraft, with a battle rating of 4.7. Its main source of power is a 14-cylinder radial engine. The bottom part of the fuselage houses self-sealing fuel tanks. The machine and its pilot are protected with steel armor plates and bulletproof glass. As for attacking, the machine offers 2 large-caliber machine guns and 2 20mm cannons. And if you still want more, you can add 2 gun pods with Mk103 and 30mm autocannons. And since it's a strike aircraft, you can also go for rockets or bombs with calibers between 50 kilograms and a whole ton. Much like most of other fighters in the series, the F-8 modifications keeps its end up in dogfights too. Its climb rates leave much to be desired, of course, but if you turn a little to the side at the beginning of the battle, you can compensate for it. On the other hand, when you do meet the enemy fighters at your altitude, pushing them down won't be a problem. With some good armor, a nice amount of rounds, and guns installed close to the center of the plane, your chances in a frontal attack are high. Speaking of armament, for a Focke-Wulf, having only 2 cannons is kinda modest. You can always add the 2 30mm cannons, of course, but we recommend against that in air battles. The flight performance with such a load will be a tad too slow for your taste. With some speed and flaps employed, this machine can do frontals all right, and even make a good turn in a dogfight. And of course you can always try to escape by diving. It won't look heroic, but it's a way, right? That's why the engineers put that armor on. Now, let's see what we have in mixed battles. That's where gun pods could come in handy. Their belts cost a little fewer spawn points than a set of top bombs, but they come with their own disadvantages. First, the ammo pool is low, only 70 rounds. And when you spend all of them, the guns become a dead weight for your plane you can't remove. Alternatively, you can go for a set of 5 bombs, 4 small 50 kg ones, and a single 1-ton bomb. Just look at how ridiculous it looks under this small single-engine plane. If you go for that, forget about maneuvering. Your priority is to find a group of enemy tanks and drop the biggest bomb as soon as possible. In case you haven't tried that before or need a reminder, you can use the suspended armament selector for that. Having dropped that burden off, you can finally chase some planes around. Some of you might remember episode 203, where we shared a story about British pilots defending the Soviet city of Murmansk. Back then we mentioned a certain Zakhar Sorokin, and he was a person who deserves his own story. So you see, guys and gals, this is another story for another time. So, on the 25th of October 1941, Lieutenant Sorokin and his partner took off to intercept a group of German Bf-110 planes. Murmansk is a place where the late October means deep winter, minus 30 degrees Celsius, snowstorms, and near zero visibility. It didn't help the Germans, though, since it didn't take long for the Soviet interceptors to find them. And after a short, hard fight, 2 of their planes kissed the ground. The remaining 110s didn't turn back, though. They continued on their way to Murmansk. There was a complication for the Soviet pilots, though. A bullet injured one of them in the leg. The MiG-3's scarce ammo pool wouldn't last long either. Once he realized there was no way round it, Sorokin decided to ram the German. And since no flight was possible after that, he landed onto a frozen lake surrounded by ice-covered mounds. It was still the very beginning of his struggle. As it turned out, one of the 109s made an emergency landing close by, so the injured Sorokin had to go through a hand-to-hand fight with 2 German pilots as well. On top of his thigh being shot, he also got a few bruises and a knife wound. Finally, he was alone. Alone in the dusk, exhausted, injured, and surrounded by a snowy desert. No hope for any search parties in such a place. The only thing he could do was to get up and go, try to prevent himself from falling asleep, never sitting down even for a second. The lieutenant continued walking even after he fell into the cold water of one of the creeks. He managed to climb out. When he could walk no more, he crawled. After 6 long, excruciating days, Zakhar Sorokin managed to get to Murmansk, where he was immediately hospitalized unconscious. This heroic feat was soon printed in every newspaper. It was so beyond what a regular human could do, few people actually believed it. But Colonel Neville Ramsbottom Isherwood, commander of the British pilots in the Soviet polar region, confirmed in his report that the whole story was genuine. Once that confirmation was received, the story became widely famous in Great Britain. So much so that King George VI ordered the awarding of the Soviet pilot with the Order of the British Empire. Crawling across an icy desert bore its consequences, of course. The frostbite on his feet was so bad, Sorokin had to have both of them amputated. They said he cried in his sleep, but not because of pain, rather for fear of having to leave the Air Force and forget about flying. Fate has its own ways, though. Sorokin refused to go home and learned to use prosthetics so well, he managed to claw back the right to pilot the fighter plane. He started with the familiar MiG-3, and later even tried the newest Era Cobra. He continued flying and fighting, and met the Victory Day with the title Hero of the Soviet Union, and also wearing his Order of the British Empire. He was a person who never gave up, never let his spirits down, and pushed for the goal no matter how scary, painful, or outright impossible it seemed. And just perhaps when you feel something similar, his story will be your inspiration. In this episode, we'll compare some of the most popular rounds for ranks 5 and 6, the 105mm DM13 APF-SDS and the M728 APDS. Both are often found in the ammo racks of many a nation's tanks, so you can expect various names and designations for these rounds. To avoid confusion, we'll call rounds with 300mm of penetration the DM13. And those with 260mm of penetration, the M728. Most tanks in the game can only choose one of them, but there are exceptions, such as the Swedish Strav 103, which can use both. So, what do you use, and what's the best time for them? Case 1. The Soviet T-10M heavy tank. It's got some good sloped armor, so the DM13 is useless against the 120mm thick front plate, but the M728 normalizes better at contact, so penetration is possible at distances up to 300 meters. The difference is even bigger with thinner armor. Case 2, the British Chieftain Mark III. The DM-13 can't penetrate its 86mm upper glacis even at point-blank range. The M728, however, can do it even more than a kilometre away. Case 3, the aforementioned Stridswagen 103. Its frontal plane is only 40mm thick, but can easily deflect most enemy rounds, including the DM-13. The M728, however, well, no distance can improve this Swede's chances against it. The situation is opposite with vehicles that have thick, barely sloped or non-sloped armor, like the American T-95 tank destroyer. Its frontal plate is 305mm thick, but the DM-13 can penetrate it from 700 meters away. You might feel suspicious here. This round's penetration is 303mm. The armor is 305mm thick. How can it work at 700 meters of distance? Well, the thing about the T-95's armor is that it's homogeneous, not rolled, which means it has lower specific strength. The other round, the M728, can't even penetrate this plate at point-blank range. Another thick-armored enemy you might encounter at this rank is the German Jagdtiger. The DM-13 round has no trouble penetrating any part of it at 1 kilometer away, while the M728 may only handle the hull's armor. A similar situation can be expected with the Soviet T-55AM-1. The DM-13 can handle the turret's front, while the M728 simply destroys the machine, moving to a point 1 kilometer away, and none of the rounds can handle the hull anymore. At 2 kilometers, the M728 can't penetrate the tank at all. Let's hope that these examples will help you better feel the difference between the rounds. Good hits and penetrations on the battlefield. Meanwhile, we'll answer some of the questions you've asked us in the comments. The first question was sent by a player called Tilorius35. What would be the best aeroplane for me to research? The Bf-109F4 or the FW-190A4? Hi Tilorius. It's all up to your preference and playstyle. The Messerschmitt is a more versatile choice since it can both climb quickly to dive at the enemy and join in a dogfight. The Bf-109 even has some hardpoints for bombs, useful in mixed battles. The Focke-Wulf is a more specialized plane, with its main advantage being its powerful guns. It's great for frontal attacks and boom and zoom. So Ankiriksme writes, why the M1128 doesn't have either scout and or airstrike like other machines such as the Romor and Type 16? They're all MGS. Either we've actually changed the class of all top-wheeled machines to that of light tank, which means now all of them have the scouting and the airstrike abilities. Another question comes from Jordan Dino 417. Can you do a triathlon of top helicopters? Hello, Jordan Dino. We've done that in episode 212. Check it out if you missed it. Christian Birak asks, what is the best attack aircraft in Rank 5 USA to use in RB ground battles? Greetings, Christian. All American planes of that rank can be good attack aircraft, but we think the one that stands out is the F-3D. With two 2,000-pound bombs, you can destroy a whole group of tanks, and you'll still have the 20mm cannons that are efficient against most tanks' roofs at this rank. And the last comment for today was written by It's Neons. What's the tank that can hold the most shells? Hi there. Speaking of tanks and shells specifically, rounds with calibers of 20mm and more, we can think of two record holders. The record for the biggest ammo pool among classic guns belongs to the Soviet T-35 with a total of 322 rounds. As for tanks with autocannons, the record belongs to another Soviet tank, the T-60, with a total of 754. Well, that's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT, or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to leave a like. Share your thoughts and comments, because we're asking for them. Stay motivated despite anything and everything, and we'll see you next week.